That's
Do
true.
you see what I'm saying?
So a point you brought up earlier on about women being blamed for a lot of the issues in a domestic violence situation. There was an old movie where Vijayanti Mala starred, and she sang a song rather, or Ratane Janam Din. You know, women are always given the blame. Men do all the wrong things in this world, and they put all the blame on the women. It's a beautiful song. I'll give you a clip of it one day. But coming back to the book, there were two issues that I would like to talk to you about. The one about your wedding. When you refused to wear a shirt and tie, and the other one when you refused to go to honeymoon. I mean, how traumatic was that? You know, here's a guy who on his wedding day preferred to be drunk with his friends as opposed to taking his beautiful wife in a limousine and a hotel that was booked with flowers and all the trimmings, you know.
What was he thinking?
Exactly. Where was his mind? And where were yours?
You took it out of my mouth because I was going to ask you, forget him. What was wrong with me?
Exactly.
I was just so much in love, dumb, blind, stupid, maybe the descriptive I would use for myself. But yes, I was getting married. Oh my God, I am going to admit this because you read the book, you'll figure it out, right?
Yes.
I'm Sanatan Dharm, Hindu. I was supposed to get married in a maro with my
Mandap,
sari
yes.
and the
All the trimmings, yes. Trappings, yeah.
he'd never wear one of those things.
No.
And he said to me, if he had to wear one of those things, he's never going to get married to me. Boy, I wish he had said that now. But he did say that. And then the honeymoon, the limo was waiting. My sisters packed a bag. My brother booked 2 nights on the water at the Hudson River at the Sheraton. I work for Starwood now. See, I didn't work for Starwood then. I know I would have had a great time. And nope, they had to say, it was paid for. The room was
Yes, that was. I said, "What the hell is going on here?" You know, I should
Those
talk
were
about hell.
signs. But right there, right in your face, on your wedding night. That's so.
There's another.
I contributed to this.
How long did you go through? Like, what was your coping mechanism? I saw in the book that you started to drink.
Yeah.
Yes.
And take prescriptions. Like, how did you get to that point where you were just like, were you feeling like you were going crazy? Like you were stuck and no one could help you get out of this? And no matter how many people you try to talk to, they're like, stay in this marriage, stay in this marriage. And no one understood what you were going through because nobody wanted to.
I didn't tell anyone. So I graduated to drinking. I didn't start there. So you asked coping mechanism. In my book, I wrote about a self-induced syndrome called the ostrich syndrome. When things got rough,
You're very hard in the sand.
I was like, okay, I just need to go take another class, or I need to book work travel. I just need to go. And I ran away. I must have worn out running shoes because when I was away, I was safe. I didn't have to deal with abuse. And I was in denial that someone who loved me hurts me. I couldn't accept that emotionally. I'm a last of 13 children. I was the most loved child probably ever. I didn't understand what it's like not to be loved. And I couldn't handle it. I didn't develop those emotions of how to.
But there was love on your part, but you know you're denying it, especially when he got gored by that bull. You were there, and you were saying things that, oh God, I don't want him to die, and he looked like he's the father of your children. You were denying that this guy was abusing you when you were trying to help him.
I was in major denial. Most victims are in denial usually.
You never reached the point where you wanted to tell somebody, or you wanted to express yourself, or you just wanted like God to just please answer your prayer?
I wanted God take it away or take me away. Well, God wasn't taking it away, so I had made a bold decision to take me away. I couldn't execute it.
Did you reflect on that? I mean, the selfishness that was there? You
That was very selfish for me to think that I would leave my children motherless.
Right.
But what were you gonna do?
I was gonna drive my car over the Florida Turnpike on a road called State Road 561 in Lake County, and I've driven that road over 10 years, and I used to see they haul cars up, one of those grabbers. I was like, if I flip my car over there, I'd be dead. And like a few seconds before I hit that spot, I remember I passed. And I went home that day and I hugged my kids because I knew I would have never seen them again. But moments of deep pain comes enormous courage. And going back to the coping, the running away was one thing, and that wasn't helping. So I said, you know what? I just need to not feel it anymore. So I decided to do what he did. See, abuse is a learned behavior. It's a learned behavior. If you boys who experience abuse statistically will exhibit abusive behaviors when they grow up and when they have partners in their life. And because I was with an abuser and I saw the behaviors, what I didn't know subconsciously, I was starting to develop some of those behaviors. I started to drink.
Yes.
I started to yell at my kids. I didn't even it just happened so subtly. So when they say that it can be genetically or maybe genetically is not the word, but it's a learned behavior. One of the famous studies in the 60s were called See Aggression, Do Aggression, if anybody's in psychology.
So because you saw the aggression from him, you started to...
I just started to behave that way. Victims start to believe.
Identifying with
They start to identify with the abuser. Like, you know what? They're right. Maybe my sister doesn't really care for me, and maybe if she stopped coming to my house, maybe he'll stop drinking, he'll stop abusing. I actually went to my sister's house in Orlando and told her January '07. Hey, you know what? Because he told me, I don't want her here at my house anymore. You know, that's the reason why I have to go drink. And they blame everybody for their beer. So I went to my sister's house and I said, I don't want you to come. And my sister's in the medical field. And she looked at me and she said, under one condition, I think you must have read this part, under one condition, I need you to go see a counselor. And that was January '07. It took me 3 months. And in March of '07, I started seeing a counselor. And within 4 months, I was able to get a little bit stronger, and by the end of that year, I had a legal separation. I was able to stand up, but I couldn't do it with the judicial system. I couldn't do it without the restraining order. I couldn't do it alone. I had to tell family. I had a code with my phone, and victims, if you're listening, it's very, very important. Lives could be saved. Make sure you tell somebody you're being abused, because I had a code on my phone with my sister, because in a snap, you could lose your life. And if I can't talk, I dial and I press 1, 2, 3 on the keypad on the phone, and it'll sound like 911, and I hang up. That's her cue, because I gave her the case number that was in the docket, and she had a number for the local sheriff. She'll call them, and she was able to call once, and that was the time, I don't know if you got to that part of the book, where he showed up and said, I'm going to get the gun, and I'm going to end it all right now. And that was the day he was removed, and I had an injunction order for him for a year, and that was the beginning of my happiness.
I'd like to come back to one of the identification syndrome. When you started drinking, to identify with his drinking, have you ever thought that you may have become an alcoholic like him? And maybe, or have you ever thought, well, maybe if he sees me drinking, maybe he'll stop, or maybe you share the drinks together, whatever, maybe
No, I've never shared the drinks together.
No?
No, he was more of a closet drinker.
Okay.
He, people who knew him, he didn't drink much. He'll have 1 or 2, but he'd end up drunk. I learned later in the plant, in the truck, in the attic, in the backyard. I mean, you know, I have a lake in the back of the G, and I swear, one day if that lake gets dry, I mean, there'd be vodka bottles floated at the bottom of the lake. Maybe I'll just drain that pond one day. I don't own the property anymore. But a victim is so much in pain that you don't think logically. I didn't think that I would become an alcoholic, but I remember when I made the decision to stop when he confronted our son, I really, it was hard. Let me tell you, I'd come home and I would want to drink really bad because I was so stressed. I was this emotion. He wouldn't be home. You didn't know where he was. You wouldn't know if he'd come home drunk. You wouldn't know if the door's going to get kicked in, the plate's going to. You see, in America here, they realize 911. That's not a good thing, because if they get caught, they hit you. And you have bruise, they go to jail. So they
zero tolerance. Zero tolerance.
Abusers develop very creative way of abusing you non-physically. So I used to be scared. So when I stopped drinking, I didn't go to any anonymous groups. I am a 5-year member now of an anonymous group that supports families of addicts and alcoholics. And I am very, very active in my community. I also go to open AAs and open NAs. And I am personally breaking my anonymity. That has helped me more than anything else to understand the disease of alcoholism that we were talking about earlier. There's 4 C's attributed to it. I did not cause it. I cannot cure it. I'm not a doctor. It is a mental illness. I cannot change it, but I can contribute to it if I don't stand up for myself. I was weak. I had a lot of fear, and I could not do it on my own. So there's a quote in one of my groups that says, "Courage and fellowship replace fear." And it says, it's from a book called From Survival to Recovery, Growing Up in an Alcoholic Home. And it's one of the gifts of my life is I have a great fellowship. I have great family. And I have to use those resources, respect the resources. I have to use them in order to help me get better. But if I don't speak and I don't tell anybody, how would you know
Right.
I'm getting abused? You would never know.
Never know.
Because you know what?
You
I
hide it.
love this thing.
You
You're
hide it
going to love
beautifully.
this. You know, a pig, if you take a pig out in public and you put lipstick on it, it's still a pig,
Wasn't that Sarah Palin?
right?
Oh, right. It was.
So I used to be like really beautiful going out there with my husband and smile and have a great time. But on the inside, I was
Yes,
dying
you were
on
hurting
the
inside, yes. The other thing I wanted you to talk about was your divorce and the impact that had on you and the children. I know
God,
it's a
that's a
word,
tough
it's a
thing.
word, yes, yes.
Those are tough things. We may have to come back and do a half a day
Okay.
show on this thing. But
Just an overview.
the divorce itself, of course, I settled out of court. As you read to the end part of the book, I had resolve. I had forgiveness for the person that was an addict and that was an alcoholic.
You forgave him?
I forgave him. Forgiveness is not for him, it's for me to move on. And I used to look at him, and I learned over my recovery, when you look at a person with addiction, you look at them with a big D on their forehead for disease. So I always used to focus on right there on the D, and I used to like forget everything else. When I got divorced, I remember the day I was going to sign the papers. It was settled out of court. It's private, it's undisclosed. And I sat in a car. It was early. And I remember I felt so drained and so weak.
Empty, yeah.
I think you read that part. I was so empty. I felt like I lost a dream. I felt like my life ended. And I went in and I did sign the papers. And I remember coming out and I said to myself, I said, I'm going to be very happy when I got divorced. Divorce will solve my problem. I leave the abuser. I'm going to be happy. And you know what? When I walked out of there, G and Linda, I was so much in pain because it wasn't, the divorce didn't solve my problem. It was a loss of a dream. It was loss of a marriage. It was, oh my God. I mean, it was like all of a sudden your life goes and you just stop in the middle of the road. Like, where do you go? And I learned through my program, my support group says, one day at a time. Let go, let God. And I did that. And I went home and I made dinner. It affected me to the point where it took me a while to start to trust men. Again, I do trust them now, and I do love. But a lot of victims who don't go through the recovery and the counseling in the right way may end up having resentment for long periods of time and be very angry. And there are a lot of victims out there very, very angry. That we just need to let go of the anger.
Yes.
My children, so I went through the recovery, but my children, I took them as well with me to these groups. My son had some issues. He learned some behavior. He lied. He stole some things from me. He was starting to talk back, and at 17, 18, he started to drink. But with God's help, I had a program, and I had, through counseling, I was able to sit down and talk to him, and little by little over the years, I am able to break the cycle. Am I where I need to be with my son? No, he just was out of college a year. He started back this year. But I trust in my Lord. I've kept my faith, not lose sight of that, and trust the word love. People say love is unconditional. We don't need to say unconditional. Love is love. It doesn't come with anything. And I'm getting through the process. Now, very, very important if you're listening and you have kids in abusive situations. My son was developing, going through the puberty and the teenage. That's when this happened and it exploded. My daughter, however, was much younger. I used to tell myself, oh my God, if I leave him when I was younger, the kids wouldn't have a father, they wouldn't have a role model. This is going to affect them. Now, that's what I thought when I was a victim and I was in pain. That was denial. You realize that. That was me telling myself not to leave because I wasn't strong. Now, as I see both kids, I left when my daughter was younger. No issues. She was so young, she didn't start to develop all these social skills and stuff. She's a perfect child, loving, caring. But my son, because he was developing, he was starting to exhibit the behavior. So if we have to make a decision to say, if I leave an abuser, it's bad for my kids, no. Living with an abuser and having the kids see that aggression, that they have a higher probability of being aggressive themselves and abusive, we have to step back and say, who are we fooling? Are we fooling ourselves? Or are we just telling ourselves that to just not develop that strength or go out and try to champion help to leave? But both my kids grew up in it, and I've seen one go this way, one go this way. I'm working to bringing him back, and it's a battle. He's 6'2" and about 200 pounds, so you can imagine how difficult it is to grab him and bring him back. He has an opinion. He has stopped drinking. He does not use drugs that I know of. He can even confess. Very loving, and I will share this. I had a dinner with him a couple of Fridays ago. He was going through a rough patch, and I wanted to talk to him, and he made some decisions that weren't so good. And I said, son, is there anything I did, in your life as a parent that maybe attributed to this? He says, no, Mom, you did everything good. You're one of the best moms, And he goes on, and I said, okay, then tell me what you learned from me. And there's a funny part to this. So I'll tell the serious part first. He says, I said, tell me what you learned. He says, Mom, I learned never to abuse women and to respect women. And I'm like, oh my God, I finally broke the cycle. And I'm observing this. Now, he is going to be 21 in January. He kept on talking. He goes, I also learned never to get in a car with strangers. And I just lost it. I'm like, son, you're 21. It's okay. But guess what? He learned never to abuse women. So whether his father was abused, whether his father was abused, I mean, we don't know these things. These are all he says, she said. But what I know is my son will respect women. He will not abuse women. I don't think he'll abuse alcohol and drugs. But it takes us as parents to go out and get the help. The help is everywhere. We just have to come out and get it.
So great. I'm like very privileged to be talking to you today, because I feel that a lot of people may not understand what courage and what it was for you to write this book, Breakout, and then to step out and start an organization, being the founder of the Caribbean American Domestic Violence Association. It's you not only change yourself, but you also are helping others and empowering other women to step out and make their lives better. No one needs to live in abuse, of any sort of abuse.
Let me just say, not only women, but men too.
And men too.
Men too.
Men
Oh,
do get
I need to
abused.
talk to you about that because I heard something. I'm just
Okay,
kidding.
all right.
But it's true. Men do get abused,
Of
and
course,
a lot
of
of times
course.
men don't talk about it too.
All right. So
because of
let's
the
But let me end on that particle note on men. There was a research some 2 years ago where they said 250,000 men reported that their wives beat them up. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, because there are like about 1 million more men who are ashamed to go to the police station to report that their wives beat them up.
Exactly. They
we
shouldn't
can't do
be,
that. We're going to do that.
I mean, and I'll share this. We had a guy that his name is Gregory Holder, and I can say his name because he came out publicly and said his wife. He was married for 28 years. He was cut and burned pretty much, and when he stood up at one of our conferences we did overseas, and he says, "I'd like to break my silence. I'm a male victim." He's about 6'1", about maybe 250 pounds. Everybody started to laugh, and I remember saying, this is not a laughing matter. He was abused. So men are getting abused, but they are not
Coming forth, yes.
they're not coming out. But Linda, I want to go back to something very important you asked is we're able to write the book and able to share it. And I said this on one of the social medias recently, and I think you may have read it, is we have a fiduciary duty to our society, Panditji. If we learn something that benefits our society through our personal experiences or whatever it is, we have an obligation to share that knowledge. And I used the example in the social media comment that said, if a father knows mechanic or how to fix a car and teaches that son, that father transfer the knowledge to the son, and the father dies. If the father died and didn't teach the son, then that knowledge is lost.
Right.
If a mother knows, like myself, that I experienced abuse and I came out of abuse, it is my fiduciary duty to teach my daughter. And if I can teach one other person, then I know when I die, I don't want that knowledge to go with me. That book will stay forever. That book, the documentary, is all owned by the organization. And I know that someone will pick it up maybe 50 or 100 years and said, you know what? This was a Hindu Indian woman that went through this in the time of when nobody spoke, and she did it. Maybe it'll make a difference, but if they lay me here to sleep in the coffin or cremate me or whichever, how would anyone know that you could have hope? So transferring of knowledge, the good knowledge, and transferring of behaviors, it's no different from transferring aggressive behavior to a son or a daughter as well.
Right.
So
Definitely.
we're trying to transfer good knowledge to
That's
us.
why I liked the fact that you wrote the book, and I was very happy to see what you are doing and the help that you've helped the community and other communities around.
Right.
And the Finding Wisdom show, it's all about finding wisdom and sharing that wisdom with others.
Right.
Because wisdom found should be shared.
Right.
That's just our motto. But it's just so much more. A person's on the outside listening to a story and not being in the story or not ever experiencing those moments, they may not get it that well. But being that you went through that and you experienced that and it's very powerful.
Yes, indeed.
And I hope to see you do more great things.
Yeah.
And if there's a way I could be a part of helping you in what you're doing, I'd love to be a part of that.
Well,
The
one of the
Finding
ways,
Wisdom
Linda,
show
that you could help,
to help
Panditji
you.
could help, is continue these conversations in our community, especially which is high rates of domestic violence. Continue. I'm leaving one of the documentary with you. There's 5 chapters. Keep the fire burning on domestic violence, not just because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is kind of being overshadowed by breast cancer. I'm not minimizing it, but it's domestic violence every day. A victim feels it every day, not just October 1st to October 31st. So keep it
It's
in the
very
community.
True. It's very true. Domestic violence is something that's, more awareness needs to be out there.
Yeah.
People know that it's happening, but people don't want to face it. They don't want to deal with it. And for years and years, I mean, it's been happening. So what you're doing, like I said, I applaud you and others that do the same thing, because for years women have been put on this level. And years ago, when women used to have to stay home and more men used to have to work,
Right.
and more men used to have to work, they had more, they were doing it more.
Right.
And because women have to work, women are able to make their own money, they were able to be more independent. So it's like the more independent you are, the more better it is for you. And that's why I feel that I'd like to have you on the show again
Yes.
and let us know.
I would love to.
Let
come
me
back.
just add one point. You talk about the father teaching the son 1-to-1.
Yeah.
You should be 1-to-10.
Right.
You teach 10 people, then it's guaranteed that this message is going to get around. But if you teach 1-to-1, I mean, that's minimal. We want to see a cascade system where people get to know the knowledge.
And the other way, you too could help. If you know,
Go ahead.
if you know someone experiencing domestic violence and you're aware of it in your community, reach out. Talk to them. If you know that they are going through harm or probably go through harm, report it to the police.
Will do.
Okay. How can someone to you? How can we, Pandit Ramatan, myself, and others out here help someone who is going through something like this?
First of all, be open to listen to what they have to say. And don't get into the mentality like we have over the generational years that, oh, it's their problem, they'll fix it. Domestic violence is a community problem. In the US, it's $5.8 billion a year to fight domestic violence. 4.1 billion of that 5.1 is in medical care. And what's even more horrific, only about 12% of domestic violence cases are being reported. 12% are being reported. So we're in the US. Those are the statistics. It is a community problem. It affects us. And let's not wait until it knocks on your door or your door, right? Men, women, children who are out there that are being abused, we have a fiduciary duty. If I see someone getting abused, I will call the law. Whether it's my sister, whether it's my daughter, whether it's my best friend, him or her that's doing the abusing, I will call the law. That's my oath to myself. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Hope we meet again.
Thank you so much for being here. And how can someone
Exciting.
get in contact with you?
www.cadva.org. All our contact information on there. If you go into Facebook and you do Facebook/CADVA, CADVA, Twitter, CADVA 2012, Sukree Boodram, SUKREE BOODRAM, Google it. Find us.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, Pandit Ramratan. And thank you so much, our viewers, for watching the Finding Wisdom show and supporting all the different shows that we have. Thank you for watching the Finding Wisdom show. See you next time.